Welcome back to the crib, and another week is passing us by, which means only one thing, and that is it's time to look forward to another weekend of Super Rugby. Of course, round 3 is making its way up upon us very quickly, kicking off this Friday night. But before we look forward to what's coming up this weekend, let's take a little rewind back to round 2 and have a look at what happened there. Now, first things first, it was a big weekend for one thing, and that was my friend Mr. Yellow Card. So let's get an update on that counter right now. Bing, bing. That tells me 21 yellow cards after 2 rounds of Super Rugby. Now, I promise not to go on about these cards too much in today's episode, but goodness me, it is becoming almost a real issue in the tournament so far this year. And if you don't believe me, or you don't think it's becoming somewhat of an issue, let's have a rewind back to 2016. Now, in 2016 there was only 85 yellow cards. That's right, 85 yellow cards. We're at 21 after 2, which means that by round 8 we will have about 84 going on current form yellow cards, which is about the halfway point of the competition's 17 regular rounds. We will already be in the 80s if we continue on this level of yellow cards. Now, it's not something I'm going to get into too much today about the cards. It is a bigger topic for a different day. But let's have a look back at the round of matches in round number 2. Of course, things kicked off in Australia on Thursday night last week with the Western Force up against the Reds. Now, this was a game where I thought the Reds were really going to start to show what they were capable of, but if anything, we saw much of the opposite as what the Western Force were actually going to be capable of doing in 2017, and that is really upsetting the apple cart, which they did here against the much more fancied, in my opinion, Reds team. On paper, that Reds team looked a lot better than what the Western Force offered up, but like we've spoken about already this year, the Western Force are a lot better team than most people have given them credit, including myself. They've given them credit for what they can do this year, and I expect the upsets, well, there should be even more from the Western Force in 2017. As for the Reds, I had high hopes that they'd have a great season this year, but they are quickly being dished out the window. As you can see the results on your screen now, the final score in that one was 26-19 to the Western Force, and really, sure, they scored some late on tries there to get that victory, but they scored some absolute rippers as well. And with a scoreline like that, sure, was close. Reds pick up a bonus point for losing within 7, but the Force to win that one, very well played, and you've got to credit them, and you've got to ask questions now about the Queensland Reds, which is what I'm doing big time after the high hopes I had of what they could achieve. They've gone down again in this round 2 fixture, which that is just bad things for the Reds after that really tight win that they got against the Sharks. It was only by 2 points, but the way the Sharks played in round 2, you've got to say, where are the Reds sitting at the moment? A win over a good team like the Sharks have shown on tour already, and then a loss to the rising Westerners of the Force. So the final score there, 26-19, like I said, to the Western Force. That was a good game, I think, to start the weekend as well. A good upset and a good one to really kick this season in the guts for the Western Force. Game number 2 was Friday night, and that was the Chiefs up against the Blues. Now, this one tarnished in a big way, in my opinion. Red cards. Now, I've talked a lot about yellow cards in the past, but red cards, they're just something completely different, aren't they? Sure, a yellow card can ruin a game in a 10-minute passage that can often be irreparable, but a red card does so much more. And there's also been a lot of talk this week about whether that was a red card to Luatua, whether it should have just been a yellow. Who really knows? But what I noticed about that game, what really concerned me about that game, was it was damn close and exciting and a high tempo, good match of rugby that was completely destroyed. The Chiefs run away with it, the Blues stormed back with some late consolation tries. Would have it made much difference in the end? I think so. Definitely I think so. Sure, those tries at the end could have been because the Chiefs had fallen asleep. They had a big lead. But that game was so tight for that first period until Luatua went off. And if they would have gone on for 80 minutes, who knows what could happen. The Blues have that ability to carve a game open with no real invitation. And they showed at the end. Sure, like I said, maybe the Chiefs had gone to sleep a little bit, but the Blues have that ability, and it's not like the game was one-sided from the start. The Chiefs definitely were not looking much more better than the Blues. In my opinion, that game was really close, and that red card absolutely squashed it like a little bug. And the Chiefs, to their credit, you can't say anything against the Chiefs here. And the tackle, yes, was bad, but from my perspective, I want to watch good rugby. I want to watch high-class rugby. I want to watch close games, exciting games, and I want to see, teams earning a win, playing for a win, and, that sort of stuff. As a fan of the game, you want to see the best type of rugby there is, but that is getting stolen away from us game after game after game, as we've seen quite prolifically this weekend. Now, of course, not going to talk about this too much, but it's not the player welfare that I'm, saying is bad. It's not that the tackles weren't bad, but it's just the value of the game is the big thing that is missing out. The value of Super Rugby is missing out big time here, and having storm over matches like this, 41-26, that final score. It was a match in the end. The Chiefs going to run away, and they did. You can't blame the Chiefs, and you can't blame the referees, because they're getting a rule book slammed in their face that they've got to abide by. I think it's much higher than this that has to be looked at into why these rules are so game dominant. That is the big thing that is concerning me about the cards at the moment. But we'll move on from that big win for the Chiefs. Blues look good for a while, but I think they're going to come back if they can keep 15 men on the field, which is a big, big thing. Right, third game of the weekend. It was the Hurricanes up against the Rebels. And well, if you think the Hurricanes weren't tested versus the Sunwolves, well, I got bad news for you, because they weren't tested versus the Rebels either, as they got absolutely pounced. Worse than the Sunwolves. They got just trashed and destroyed, screwed up into a ball thrown over the back of the head and said, "Get out of here, Rebels. You're nothing." On the Canes, 71-6. Let that sink in. 71-6. That is an absolute dismantling of the Rebels. The Hurricanes again look brilliant, look fantastic as they did against the Sunwolves, but really untested, untried. How good is this Hurricanes team? I think we might find out this weekend in their big clash with the Chiefs. We'll get more on that very, very soon. Next match of the weekend, and this one goes in the same boat as the Chiefs and the Blues for mine. A highly entertaining match, both sides having the better of portions of the game, brilliant tries being scored, a very good contest of the game, and then it looked like one team was just going to do just enough to get away with it before it was Mr. Referee with yellow card once again, which actually killed the Highlanders game for a yellow card, which here in New Zealand, especially from what I've seen in the media, is getting huge criticism about not even being a card. And then what transpired from that was, to be fair, an amazing comeback from the Crusaders, again, taking nothing away from what the teams are doing here, and nothing away from what the referee's decision-making is, but it's the rules that they have to follow that I think are just lacking somewhat in just how pedantic things are going to be. These guys are highly paid sports athletes. In a contact sports, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be stuff like that. You can't wrap these guys up too much in cotton wool and bubble wrap. You just can't do it. That was probably a harsh yellow card. And sure, who knows? Maybe the Highlanders could have completely capitulated and lost that game anyway, regardless. Who knows? That's irrelevant now. The fact that it does matter that yellow cards are affecting outcomes more than ever. And again, that was ruined the contest. Great for Crusaders fans out there to see that comeback after they probably suffered 70 minutes of complete dismay. But you got to wonder how long until teams are going to start to get a bit annoyed about how things like this are going to affect their season. The Highlanders getting completely decimated with injuries as well this season. They're losing a lot of players into this third round. So their season looks like it is going steeply downhill, despite playing some amazingly exciting rugby. They went down in the final dying seconds of that match to the Crusaders, 30-27. The Crusaders did well. Again, like the Chiefs, they played the hand that was dealt to them, and you can't fault them for that whatsoever. There's just something in there that's really grinding the gears at the moment and killing that good contest of rugby completely out of the end. If anything, it did make that Highlanders Crusaders game a little bit more exciting at the death there, which is, you know, always good to see at the death like that when it gets a bit more exciting. It's better than that Chiefs game that was just dead for about an hour of the match after the red card. So, you know, not so bad a result. I'm probably more annoyed about how that Chiefs game went than the Highlanders one, to be fair, because that one was pretty much all over and there wasn't too much pain of one team dominating too much, and it was an exciting finish as well, which is always more the better to watch. Right, following that one, went to Australia where the Brumbies were up against the Sharks. Now the Sharks on the second leg of their Australian tour after going down very close to the Reds, and this one, wow, this was an absolute ripper of a matchup. Both teams never really got too far out of touch of the other. The Brumbies have shown great ability to stick with their opponents so far this season. Seen it against the Crusaders, they stuck with them till the bitter end, and they looked like they had done enough against the Sharks as well before an amazing try in extra time, stoppage time, injury time, call it what you like. Full time was up, the last player of the match, and a little break from that fullback Bosch that we talked about way back in round one as well, about how much of an impact he can have. He made the initial break, put a little chip over the top. The Brumbies just completely made a hash of it, and then go to the Sharks to score. A brilliant finish to the game, a brilliant finish that wasn't fully affected by cards at the end. It was cards earlier on, but a great finish by the Sharks to come away with that victory at the very end. Exciting rugby, good to see. It was a great match to watch, and it's interesting how the Brumbies are still sticking in these games, and I don't think you can really fully count them out of anything so far this season as well, which is promising for them and really for Australia as well after the way their Super Rugby season has gone so far this year. Right, that final score was 22-27 to the Sharks, who took it by a whisker. Man, that was a good finish to that game. Right, following that we went to the Sunwolves, who were in action against the Kings. Possibly one of the least wanted to watch games of all time, but it was a pretty entertaining game. Not the same level that we see from the other Super Rugby sides, but still, for the teams involved, it wasn't one-sided, it wasn't bad. There was a few errors here and there. The Sunwolves struggled to really finish anything, and the Kings made some pretty early inroads, and to be fair, they looked pretty good. But the problem, which I'll probably go on about more later, with the Sunwolves, is once their defensive line was broken, they never really recovered, and it made one line break by the Kings pretty much always resulted in a try, especially early on in the match, which is something that Sunwolves need to work on, that scrambling defence to try and recover their structure as quickly as possible. The Kings, amazingly, they won that one quite comfortably in the end, 37-23. The Sunwolves scored some brilliant tries, but the Kings always seem to be in control of that one right from the outset, where they scored very early on and they just rode their luck right the way to the end. So they won that one quite nicely. The Kings, a bit of an upset. Nothing against the Kings. I think they've done themselves quite well early on in the season. As much as I paid them out earlier at the start, they seem to be travelling okay at the moment. The Sunwolves, though, there's real concern now. They've gone down to the Kings, a team that they should probably be targeting to win, to be completely fair. So that's a bit of a shame there for the Sunwolves not to get the win. But credit goes to the Kings. They're performing. They've got to win. And it's better than some of the teams can definitely say at this stage of the season. Okay, next matchup, we're in South Africa, where the Lions are hosting the Waratahs, and I picked the Waratahs to lose this one pretty badly as well, and they did. The Lions absolutely thrashing them. Set piece time. The Lions were all over it. The Waratahs, as the game wore on, just got more and more mistake-ridden in the game. 55-36, the final score on that one. The Lions thrashing them. The Lions seem to be back to good nick, which is nice to see. Following that one, we're still in South Africa. The Stormers are up against the Jaguars. What do we say about this? Jaguars, more yellow cards. The Stormers, a lot of things I've read this week about this game is that the Stormers were pretty much getting away with a bit of murder in this game, whereas the Jaguars were getting absolutely stomped on, which is something we may talk about a little bit more later, about maybe teams targeting the Jaguars because of their reputation of ill-disciplined side over their opponents. Interesting things I've read about that this week as well. But the Stormers too good for the Jaguars. Come back late, but in control. The Stormers seem to be throughout 32-25, getting the job done by just 7 points, which gives the Jaguars a bonus point at least, which is good for them to get something there on the points tally out of that matchup. Staying in South Africa, the final game of the weekend, and, well, I have to take the daggers out of my back because the Cheetahs have done it again. You back them, they lose. Then you say, nah, stuff the Cheetahs, and they go and pull off a performance like this and take out the Bulls. Now this game, pretty entertaining one as well, I might add. The great thing about this match is it was actually the Cheetahs that stormed out to an early lead. They were leading by 14, 28-14 at half time. But it was the Bulls who come roaring back into the game late on, and you gotta say, it got very tense, it got very exciting to the end. But one man from that game that I was impressed with was the man I really spoke about needing to step up for the Cheetahs. That's Fred Zelinger. He was great again, scored a boatload of points and is directing that team around very nicely. 2 tries from Maholje, which is very, very good for them as well. I think the Cheetahs are going all right now. A close loss in their opening round matchup, but now with that win behind them, who knows what they can do. And if a round 3 fixture that they should definitely win as well, things looking good for the Cheetahs, like you guys were saying in the comments. The Cheetahs aren't that bad. They're a good side. And you're right. You're right. I take it back. You were definitely right about that. The Cheetahs doing very well to beat the Bulls, who looked like they could be an exciting team for 2017. Right. That is an attempted quick look back. Hang on. Quick look back at last weekend's results. Now, of course, the tipping competition in the fantasy team's still going on. Let's take a look at how that leaderboard looks down. Who is leading the way at the top? Number 1. Let's take a look. Okay, so here's the leaderboard for the Prediction League, and we've got a leader at the top, up 8 places from last weekend. Timothy, the big Cheetahs fan, he was absolutely humming after that big win by the Cheetahs as well. And his picks, they weren't too bad either. He sits atop the table with the yellow cap firmly on his head. We have another man up from a 3rd, Caleb 42N, up to 2nd position. The Stig, though, has dropped down to 3rd. So he was the leader after round 1. He has fallen away. Another big jump here, up 18 spots, is Yal Matu, who's gone up to 4th. And then we have Nates, who is sitting in 5th position. Big rises there throughout the table. Going down to the other end, unfortunately, there's plenty to be seen here. Credit here goes to Brett Hartley as well. You may know the name, been on the channel a few times. Just joined this week, and already his first match that he picked perfectly. Margin, winner, smack bang on the money. So credit goes to him. Congrats for that, Brett. Great picking from you, sir. Unfortunately, my team my picks down in 41 position, but still. Only 2 rounds in, I got 15 to pull that back. Don't worry about it. It's alright. Get your confidence up, everyone. I'll be coming back for you very, very soon. Don't worry about that. In the wooden spoon position is S. Romero. He sits bottom, 45th position so far. And the man with the wooden spoon this week is Rugby Rampage, who has actually got the worst picks from round 2. Wooden spooner down there. He sits 38th. Still above me. So, have your wooden spoon, but you're still sitting better than me anyway. So how about the fantasy league? Let's take a look at that one. Okay, so there's no change at the top of the fantasy team league leaderboard, with Ben Nichols still sitting at the top with 435.5 points. Now we've got a change round in 2nd and 3rd. We've got Magic Gnomes, Carefree Water Buffaloes, who have moved up 3 spots, going into 2nd, and Winner Winner Chicken Dinner going up 1 from 4th to 3rd. Dropping down 2 places, Solar Eclipses now in 4th, and we have the Gas Monkeys. That's the Stig, same man from the predictions, going very well as well, and here he is up to 5th. We have a good name, Enter Team Name, with the yellow cap, picking up 16 spots and on 412 points. So a lot of big risers, a lot of big droppers in this one as well, as we scoot our way down to the bottom. Trailing at the bottom is AD Pad 123, who hasn't made a damn team yet. No points for him, but it is Kev 45 and his Merry Dragonflies, who are down on 141.5 points. My team had a bit of a drop this week. If we can find them somewhere in here, there we go. 20th we sit at the moment, 362. Couple players and injuries this week, which I didn't move out of my team, which is a bit of a bad thing. Need to make those changes tonight before the round kicks off on Friday. That is key, but we're looking all right. Congrats to the guys at the top of the leaderboard. Ben Nichols, the man to catch at the moment, top of the league for the second week in a row.